Hiya folks, I'm going to make you guys this video and call it how the ACA could balance the budget. And what is the ACA? The ACA is just another name for Obamacare. So that's actually technically the real name of it is the ACA, which means the Affordable Care Act. So it's affordable care for people. And that's mainly for poor people. Rich people can already afford it. But the rich people are propagandized also. They're highly propagandized. As a matter of fact, they may be more propagandized a little bit more so than the lower people on the social scale. Because it's the rich people, the political class and the rich people, it's their consent to the mind control and oppression system working that is most crucial, most critical. If they don't consent to it, then it ain't going to work because they're the ones that own everything and they're the ones that have the most power. So what happens is that they're propagandized. They're just told repetitively through the publications and the media outlets that they use that they have this boogeyman. And that boogeyman is poor people that want government subsidies, you see. So what happens is that since they're already part and parcel in the setup of the corporate power structure, or they're investors and owners in the corporate structure, it's difficult for them to turn the mirror and look into it and say that I'm the problem, you see. Because they don't have to, because they can sit up and drink $5,000 champagne mimosas all day over the weekend, you know, and they can just count their money because the stock market keeps going up, because every time it's set up that rich people oppress poor people even more and rob them, the stock market goes up because they're robbing from the poor literally to feed the rich. So what the Affordable Care Act did is President Obama, who was without a doubt the greatest president in U.S. history, what he did was he set it up so that the Affordable Care Act would actually balance the budget itself. All right. Now you got two problems which caused a huge deficit in the American economic system. Okay. The two problems are the dysfunctional healthcare system and proliferation of military spending. So we'll just focus on the healthcare system and how it would balance the budget. Okay. Now get this. So we'll use the example of the opioid crisis as one example. Not the only example, but it's a good example. All right. So for instance, when people become addicted to the opioids, they have to go to these programs, you know, that are government funded, and they may be state or even local municipality funded. However, those programs are subsidized by the U.S. government. So that means it's your tax dollars, you see. So the poor people are paying for it. The rich people don't want to pay for it because the way they see it, they own everything. So they don't got to do anything they don't want to do. You see what I'm saying? I've got $35 billion. I need $70 billion. You see what I'm saying? Because when you go to those parties that rich people are at and all that kind of stuff, that's pretty much when they're in their little circles talking and stuff like that. Warren Buffett and you know, Peter Thiel and whoever the fuck else. That's all they'll really be talking about. They'll be talking about two things. You know, well, with this quarter I made $45 billion. You know, and then the other thing they'll be talking about is how generous they are to charities. So, and see, that may be true. So they think that exonerates them. Okay. So what the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, would have done was, well, it's still in the middle of trying to do it, is that the way it works is that, so you got this opioid crisis, and these people go to these programs, They're either federal funded, state funded, or local municipality funded, and perhaps even funded by some foundations and charitable organizations, whatever. Okay, but still, a lot of it is from tax dollars. Okay, so that's one method of expenditure. All right, so you take that into consideration. Now, the second one, and the biggest one, and this is the one that the insurance companies don't never want you to figure out. So you ain't never, ever gonna see a story about this shit in your life. And that is that when the person goes to the emergency room because they OD'd or whatever, or they go to the emergency room because they feel like they're at their wit end with their addiction and they really need help now, or they go to some kind of rehab or something like that, or whatever. All right. Now, the hospitals and the system. Okay, so between the hospitals, the organization that helps them, the municipal government that helps them, and the insurance companies, especially, okay, that help them, and they don't have any money and they don't have any health care. Believe it or not, and this is true what I'm about to tell you, this is absolutely true what I'm about to tell you. The health insurance system, that setup, that system, can get allotted up to $100 million per person that gets caught up in that healthcare system that's dysfunctional when they don't have healthcare. Okay? So somebody's got to give them the drugs that they need to help get off of the opioid. Somebody's got to put them up in a room for a week or two or three. Somebody's got to give them counseling and stuff like that. Somebody's got to set up a program that could be punitive if they fall back, or it could be that it's extended support when they're out in the world. And it all takes a lot of money. So the way the healthcare system works is, from filing all these different forms and stuff like that, they can get up to $100 million per one person that checks into that system. You think about that. That's the reason why the rich don't want Obamacare. Because they are sitting up making so much money. They make more money than they could ever imagine off of this system of robbing the federal government. And it's robbing of the money. That's tax dollars. That means you're paying for it. But the rich motherfuckers don't want you to get the benefit of it. They want the benefit of it all. So it benefits them for you to have the opioid addiction. $100 million per person. So what do we got? What's our deficit? 15, 20 trillion dollars or whatever? 3/4 of that comes from that dysfunctional healthcare system, because you're paying. So like if a person gets in a car wreck and they go to the emergency room and they don't have health care, that process starts. The federal government will compensate the hospital a certain amount of money. Then the hospital, of course, has to pay the doctors. Then if they have specialists, the specialists will step in. Then if they have to administer medicine and stuff like that, then the insurance companies take over and cover that. So that all has to be, and then the prescription has to be covered. The lawyers have to be covered. See? So that whole system is that dysfunctional. So they get up to, now they may not be able to milk 100 million out of that, but let's say they could milk 40 million per person. Because the way it works like a multi-level marketing scheme. Once they get to a critical threshold of enough people that are sick or injured, and they turn in those amount of documents to the federal government, then they reach the peak. Oh yeah, you get the bonus plan. So say for instance they had 9, they might have got 10 million per person. But now when they reach 10, they get 30 million per person. That's the way it works. So you see, Obamacare worked like this, is that by mandating health care, that means everybody has to have it, okay? So you get this subsidy from the federal government, and that subsidy is only between $400 and $1,000 per person that doesn't have health care, instead of $30 million, $40 million, or $100 million. You see? So if you don't have a certain amount of money, you don't have to pay any health care costs. It's completely covered by the subsidy. Okay? If you make a certain amount of money, then you may have 80% covered. Then up, you may have 70% covered. Then up, you may have 50, and so on. And some people kind of fell in a gray area, and that was mainly people who were self-employed or independent contractors that made about roughly, between the two people in the house, they made about $100 grand. They were kind of getting screwed. Okay, but this is a demographic that's a political class. Those people vote. See, so those are the ones that the system oppressed to piss them off about Obamacare and turn them against it. Instead, they could have went, in America by law, you can hold corporations accountable through the political process. But instead of doing that through the propaganda that they watch, which is Fox News, and now it's Breitbart, and a bunch of other dumbass shit that's completely inaccurate news, they are propagandized to believe that it's Obama's fault. It's Obama's fault. It's the niggers that are getting the entitlements. They're just sitting around. They're fat and black, and Letitia is going to pick up her welfare check in her Bentley, and she's got diamond rings on, and she's going to take that check and give it to Jamal. He's on the corner. He's going to he's selling crack. You see what I'm saying? That's how they're propagandized. They're propagandized to blame the niggers for everything. Okay, and it works. It completely works. And so when you see, for instance, on social media, when you read like white people's responses, like the Trump type followers' responses to black males being killed by the police, they always and generally lean towards blaming the black male for getting killed, because they associate their oppression through the federal government, their tax dollars being used, with black people. And so when they can't support their family like they're used to, when they don't make the same rate of increase of income, or their investments don't pay off the same rate that their grandparents did, they are propagandized to just blame niggers for it, or foreign people, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's never them. And it's never, really it's not, I mean it is them, but even worse with them is the corporations. And the reason why they will support the corporations is because of this. The corporations, the Fortune 500 and the 100 and the big, large multinational corporations, they will, once they get the subsidies from the federal government, $5 billion this year, $20 billion next year, actual payments from the federal government, they will turn around and they will buy that demographic off. They will give them jobs, or they will somehow find a way to benefit that demographic, the complaining white, especially white male demographic. They'll find a way to pay them off and get them to shut up while they just rob everybody else blind of their tax dollars. So they'll either give them a job, or they'll find some way to trickle in some kind of payment or some type of, payoff to that demographic. And that's why that demographic supports the corporate fascist system, because they will reward them. So if you go along with it and you play along with it and you rah 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 the corporation, oh fuck the niggers, you see, you'll get rewarded. And that's how it works. So what the ACA would have done is eliminated all those billions of dollars of tax subsidies for healthcare to the healthcare company. It would have just simply gave the individuals a tax payment, a subsidy of between $400,000, and we only had about between 30 and 50 million people that didn't have health care. So you do the math. Instead of $100 million per person, up to $100 million per person, max you're getting is $1,000 per person. What does that do? That kills the deficit, because those payments don't have to be made anymore. You see what I'm saying? So, but what happened? The insurance companies raised the rates way up to piss off the crackers, the complaining, crying, crybaby white males. You know, racist man and, of course, racist white woman, to piss them off. You see, they get mad about everything. I mean, they got money, they got cars, they got credit, and they're still complaining. And what do they complain about? The niggers. You see what I'm saying? So, I wanted to make that video. I've been meaning to make that video for you for a while about the ACA and the reason why it's so attacked by the corporate oligarchy and the plutocrats and the autocrats. In other words, the elite, the elite. We call them the 1%. You know, the elites, and they have a little bit of a class right below them, termed the managerial class, are the ones that buffer them from everybody else, and they support whatever the elite ideology is because they get rewarded for it, and it's real. They got nice houses, they got nice cars, they got credit cards. They can go buy an Xbox for Christmas for their kids and a big screen and get it hung on the wall and get them a big sound bar and a subwoofer system and put them a pool out in the backyard and send them off to Boca Raton for a little vacation. See? So they're paid off. See? So basically they rip everybody else off. You see? But they benefit from it. So it shuts them up. See? So they don't complain so much. And so they just go along with the status quo. That's the way it works. Obamacare, that's why Obama's the greatest president, because he's a genius. Because that setup he did would actually balance the budget even without taking away military spending. But what the crackers do? Oh no, it's socialism, it's socialism. But you're fine as long as it's socialism for a non-democratic structure, which is a corporation, which means the crackers are led around in their mind to support fascism. That's the rule of corporations over society. What's that tell you?